The St. Louis Blues were eliminated on April 11th. The expectation, relatively high, probably for a wild card berth, because they were not really up there with the heavyweights in the Central, but they had come off that surprising 2024-25 season under the tutelage of Jim Montgomery and that near first-round upset of the President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets in the first round. But the reality for this team is that they went through slides of 1-6-2 and 1-8-1. That's almost a quarter of your schedule right there. They had no 25-goal scorers. They had drop-offs, production from Robert Thomas, although he did spend considerable time injured this year, and also Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Binnington had a brutal season, and late in the year, Joel Hofer was the go-to guy in net for the Blues.
Yeah, there was some controversy there, and I know Jim Montgomery was very unhappy with the performance of the team and looking for resolutions that he couldn't find to try to dig their way out. They were basically at the back of the pack right from the get-go, right from the start to the end, and they really didn't compete with the Utah Mammoth the way we thought they would. We thought they'd both be going at each other for that wild card spot, but they really didn't, and the Mammoth ended up being clearly decisively better than the Blues this year.
The work ahead for this team is very interesting, and Alex Steen is going to be taking over for Doug Armstrong effective on July 1st, but he has been really preparing himself for this job for the last 2 years. The Blues have 12 picks in the 2026 draft, 3 in the first round, their own, and also the picks from Detroit and the Islanders in the Justin Falk, Braden Shen deals. They had none in the second, but they had 3 in the third round. Those also coming as part of those aforementioned deals. Those were picks that were previously owned by the Sharks and the Devils. They also have 2 picks in the 4th and the 5th rounds. This team has only $1.84 million in projected cap space. Their UFAs, Oscar Sundqvist, but their RFAs get interesting. Jonathan Berggren, forward, defenseman Matt Kessel, and the big one here, Dylan Holloway, who came over as an offer sheet signee. Could you imagine him now being tendered by another team?
Yeah, I can't really imagine that happening, but, they got their work ahead of them. That's for sure. They got to start to show now that they're building towards the future. I mean, last year was a year that looked like a disaster at the beginning, and then Jim Montgomery came in and saved the year. This year, he just couldn't do it. As you said, it's going to be Alex Steen at the reins. We've seen Doug Armstrong there for so many years, and he's going to have to do some handiwork on Dylan Holloway and Berggren and Kessel for sure.
So if you're looking at this from 30,000 feet, you don't have a lot of cap space, but you do have a dozen picks in this draft, which is supposed to be a good draft. What would be your approach just to get this team back into the playoffs? I don't think you're going to see this team as a Stanley Cup contender in the next 2 to 3 years. But if you've got this landscape in front of you, how do you get it back into the playoffs?
I'm not sure that you can get them back in very quickly. I'm not sure they're going to be there next year. You might have to do some real pruning of this roster and, move some guys that they're used to having around there and bring in some players. So, for example, Binnington, is there a market for him out there? Will he agree to be traded? Does somebody want a goalie that's won the Stanley Cup and that's been great in international play? And maybe you start from there and you move some people and completely reconfigure what you're working with here, sort of like out with the old and in with the new. And Alex Steen's going to have some time to be able to do that stuff and implement things because he's brand new.
But he's also picked up a lot of asset in terms of draft picks, so perhaps these are good chips to play as well here.
They are, but the future is all St. Louis has, right? So they better be careful trading away draft picks. They better just be sure that they are making the right picks with these draft picks. You can always use some of them. Nobody can not trade picks anymore. like we did in the old days and say we'll never trade a draft pick. You've got to use your picks not only for drafting but also as chips at the poker table, and I'm sure that's what they're going to do.